At 80 years old, I've seen a lot in life, made good choices and bad ones. But if there's one decision I truly regret, it's moving into a nursing home. At the time, it seemed logical. My family encouraged me, saying I'd be well cared for, safe and comfortable. I trusted them, but the reality was far from what I imagined. I know many of you might be considering this option, whether for yourself or for a loved one. Maybe it feels like the safest choice, or maybe someone has convinced you it's the most practical path. But before you take that step, let me share the 6 things I wish someone had told me before I moved in. Because the truth is, living in a nursing home isn't just about convenience, it changes everything. And once you're in, getting out is not as easy as you think. Stay with me until the end because some of these lessons may surprise you. And if you know someone thinking about making this move, this message might be exactly what they need to hear before making a life-changing decision. The pain of losing independence. The biggest shock wasn't the small room, the fixed meal times, or even being surrounded by strangers. It was the realization that I no longer had control over my own life. Before moving in, I had my routine. I chose when to wake up, when to eat, how to spend my day. If I felt like taking a walk in the morning, I did. If I wanted to stay up late reading a book, no one stopped me. I cooked when I was hungry, I ate what I liked, and I enjoyed the little freedoms that made life worth living. But inside the nursing home, my time was no longer mine. Breakfast was served at 7 a.m. whether I was hungry or not. Lights were out by 9 p.m. even if I wasn't ready to sleep. If I wanted to step outside for fresh air, I had to wait for permission, sometimes for hours. Choices I once took for granted, what to eat, what to wear, even when to take a shower, became privileges rather than rights. I remember my first week there. I woke up in an unfamiliar bed, instinctively reaching for the book I had been reading at home, only to realize it wasn't there. My favorite chair, my small but treasured collection of keepsakes, the comforting scent of my own space, gone. Instead, I was surrounded by plain walls, sterile furniture, and a sinking feeling that I had lost something I might never get back, my independence. The hardest part? Once you give up control over your life, it's nearly impossible to reclaim it. At first you resist. You ask for small adjustments. You try to hold on to pieces of your old routine. But soon, you adapt. Not because you want to, but because you have to. You stop requesting certain meals because you know they won't change the menu just for you. You stop asking to go outside whenever you want, because you know there won't always be someone available to help. You learn to fit into their system, but in the process you start to lose yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you truly ready to give up the little freedoms that make up your daily life? Because once they're gone, you'll miss them more than you ever thought possible. The pain of feeling forgotten. One of the hardest truths about moving into a nursing home is realizing that the world outside keeps moving forward without you. When I first arrived, my family promised they would visit regularly. I believed them, and at first they did. My daughter stopped by every Wednesday, my grandchildren came on Sundays, and for a while I felt like I was still a part of their lives. But as time passed, the visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming. My grandchildren got busy with work, school, and their own lives. The holidays were the hardest. They always said they'd visit, but somehow plans changed at the last minute. I spent more and more time sitting alone in the common room, watching other residents stare at the door, just like me, hoping today would be the day someone remembered them. It's not that my family stopped loving me. It's just that when you're not around, life moves on. At first, people check in often, but over time they assume you're fine, that you've adjusted, that you don't need as much attention anymore. And the longer you're in a nursing home, the easier it becomes for others to forget how much you still need them. I remember one evening, sitting in my room, holding the phone, debating whether to call my son. I missed him. I wanted to hear his voice, but I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was here, waiting for a visit that might never come. So I put the phone down. And in that moment, it hit me. This was my life now, watching the days pass, hoping someone would remember me. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're no longer part of their daily lives, it becomes far too easy for them to forget just how much you still need them. If you're still here and found these insights valuable, comment 2 below to let me know you're watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future videos. When I decided to move into a nursing home, I thought I was just changing my place of residence. What I didn't realize was that I was also changing my reason for living. At home, I had responsibilities, small habits, and hobbies that made each day meaningful. I enjoyed making a cup of coffee in the morning, watering the plants on the porch, preparing my own meals, and cleaning my living space. These seemingly simple things helped me feel like I was still in control of my life. But when I moved into a nursing home, all those little rituals disappeared. Meals were delivered, rooms were cleaned, and even my favorite potted plants were no longer mine to care for. At first, I told myself that I was finally at rest. No more chores, no more responsibilities, just relaxation. But as the weeks passed, I realized there was an emptiness. The days dragged on, without anything really belonging to me to do. And then I started to notice the people around me. I remembered Richard, an 85-year-old man who had been a carpenter all his life. At home, he was always busy with small projects, fixing things, making exquisite wooden objects. But here, there were no tools, no materials, no work for him to create. I gradually saw a man who had once been strong and skillful, now sitting silently for hours, his hands that used to hold hammers and chisels, now resting lifelessly on his lap. One day, he looked at me and said, "I feel useless." I know exactly how that feels. When you have nothing to aim for, nothing to care about, life loses its meaning, the mind slows down, so does the body. And gradually, you no longer feel like you are really living, but just existing. If you're considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives meaning to your life? Because once you lose that, it won't be easy to get it back. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was still quite healthy for my age. I didn't run marathons, but I could take care of myself, cook for myself, go for walks every day. I had a routine that kept me fit. Grocery shopping, doing some morning exercises, walking around the house to keep my legs flexible. But when I moved in, things gradually changed in ways I didn't expect. At first, I thought I was simply enjoying the relaxation. I didn't need to cook because meals were delivered. If I needed anything, I could just press a button and someone would come help. But what I didn't realize was that the less I did things for myself, the weaker I became. I started to move less. As the days went by, my legs started to feel heavy. I sat more, moved less, and then one day, getting out of a chair suddenly became a chore. The muscles I had been trying to maintain for years disappeared faster than I thought. And it wasn't just me. I saw it happen to others. Residents who had been able to walk on their own gradually relied on walkers, then wheelchairs. I remember Alice, an 81-year-old woman who was full of energy when she first arrived. She walked around the campus every day and always said, "Just because I'm getting older doesn't mean I have to slow down." But after a few months, I saw her walking less, then starting to use a walker. One day she looked at me and said, "I don't know when it started, but I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." And I knew she was right. When you stop using your body, you start to lose it. In a nursing home where everything is designed to make it easier for you, it's easy to forget that movement isn't just a habit, it's a key to survival. If I had known how quickly I would lose strength, I would have fought harder. I would have kept up my walking routine, kept moving, pushed myself even when I didn't want to. So, if you're considering going to a nursing home, ask yourself, do you have the motivation to stay healthy when things get too easy? Because once you slow down, getting up isn't as easy as you think. If you're still following along and found this helpful, please comment below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Your support helps us continue to create meaningful content to inform and inspire you. One of the things I didn't fully consider before moving into a nursing home was how much privacy I would lose. At home, I had my own space. If I wanted to sit quietly, I could just close the door. I could decide when I ate, when I slept, when I wanted to go for a walk. But here, I gradually realized that privacy is a luxury that you don't always have. From the first day, I felt like I was being watched. Medical staff came in and out of the room on a scheduled basis, sometimes knocking on the door without waiting for an answer. The common areas were always crowded, and you were rarely alone. Simple things like getting dressed, bathing, or going to the bathroom sometimes required help from others. I knew they were just doing their job, but it was hard to accept help for things I had done all my life. I remember the confusion of the first week, when I realized I had to ask permission to do things I never thought I would do before. If I wanted to shower, I had to wait. If I needed to use the bathroom, I pressed the call button, and sometimes waited longer than I wanted. Even meals were no longer an option. What if the food wasn't to your liking? You could only try to eat or starve. And then there was the less talked about issue: roommates. Not everyone had their own room. I was lucky enough to have a nice roommate, but I heard stories from people who weren't so lucky. Some had roommates who were loud, messy, or had memory problems that made them scream all night. I couldn't imagine trying to call this place home under those circumstances. But the hardest part was when you started to feel less like yourself, when people talked to you like a patient, not like a person. When your daily routine is dictated by a schedule you didn't create. When your room doesn't really belong to you. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up your privacy and control over your life? Because once it's gone, it's hard to get it back. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself that this was only temporary. I would give it a try. If I didn't like it, I could always leave. But I didn't realize that getting out was much harder. At first I thought it was simple. If I didn't like it, I would go home. But then I realized that my house was no longer mine. It had been empty for months. My children had started changing things. They sold things they thought I didn't need. They even considered renting the house. And when I said I wanted to go back, their response was, "Are you sure you can manage? Is it safer to stay? We just want the best for you." For the first time, I felt like a guest in my own life. But it wasn't just my family. I had changed physically too. After months of not having to cook, not having to clean, not having to walk long distances, I realized that my body was no longer as flexible as before. Things that used to be easy became challenges. I was slower, I was weaker, and worst of all, I started to doubt myself. Can I really live alone? That's when I understood a harsh truth. Nursing homes are not a revolving door. Once you're in, getting out is not as simple as you think. If you're considering going to a nursing home, ask yourself, are you sure you can leave if you want to? Because sometimes the decision is no longer entirely yours. If you're still following and find these shares useful, comment number 6 below to let me know you're still here. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Your support helps us continue to create meaningful content to inform and inspire you. I wasn't as strong as I used to be. The independence I once had was fading, making the idea of going home harder than I thought. I didn't feel confident that I could live on my own anymore, and that fear kept me stuck. I've met many people who have had similar experiences. They thought they would try a nursing home for a short time, only to find that leaving wasn't as simple as they thought. The longer they stayed, the stranger life outside became. Some people even lost their options entirely. Their homes were sold, or their savings were depleted by the cost of care. There was no going back. This is the part that few people tell you. They say it's a reversible decision, but the reality is that for most people, a nursing home becomes their whole world. And before you know it, life outside is a distant memory. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the possibility that once you're in, it won't be easy to leave? Because sometimes the financial, physical, or emotional barriers can be bigger than you think. If you're still watching this video and found it helpful, please comment 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because your support helps us continue to bring you meaningful content. I don't regret getting older, but I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. Instead, I found a world that slowly stripped away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and even my sense of self. Does that mean nursing homes are bad? Not necessarily. Some people really need the level of care they provide. But before you make that decision, think long and hard about what you're giving up. Because once you move in, life will never be the same again. If I could do it again, I would fight harder to stay in my home, find support without giving up my freedom, and make sure I really needed to be there before making the permanent move. If you're facing this decision, I hope you'll ask yourself, is this really the best thing for me, or is it just the easiest thing right now? Because the life you have today, your habits, your independence, your power of choice, deserves to be preserved for as long as possible. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below what you learned and how you'll apply it to your life. Reading your stories is so motivating for us. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue to create meaningful content to inspire you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.